Okay, fantastic. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's session. I'm really excited to kind of explore an often overlooked but incredibly important and critical part of leadership development, and that's the development of middle managers. So middle managers are kind of positioned between the senior leadership team and the frontline teams. So they are kind of in the middle, but they are pivotal to driving both performance of an organization and also the integrity of the company's culture. So whether you are a middle manager yourself or whether you've got middle managers within your organization, today's topic is a key one for you, a key one for you. But I just want to welcome you and just to let you know that our mission is to create a welcoming space where leaders are empowered to align their faith, their values, and their ethics with their leadership. And through this alignment, we help leaders to increase their impact authentically and achieve business success with integrity across, whatever sphere of influence they have or whatever industry they represent. Okay, so that's kind of what we do. Okay, so in today's session, we're going to be exploring, why empowering middle managers is the missing link. We're going to be, particularly when it comes to faith-oriented leadership and growth. We're going to be looking at some of the unique challenges that middle managers face in the workplace. Take a bit of time to think about why faith-based leadership principles are critical to middle managers' success or middle management success. Explore a little bit about how middle managers can actually unlock their full potential for the good of their organisation and all their teams. And then finally share a little bit about our free leadership impact and influence audit offer. And I've got some new and exciting news that's coming up soon, so I'll share that. But you need to stick around to the end to hear what we're going to be sharing. Okay, so that's what's coming up. That's what's coming up today. Fabulous. So my name's Arenka and I am a leadership coach who's dedicated to helping, faith-based leaders align their values, their talents and their spiritual gifts with their workplace roles, responsibilities, so they can make a big impact wherever they are operating. Okay, so that's me. All right then, so middle managers, like I said, they hold a unique position in any organisation. You see, they are the link between the strategic direction of senior leadership and team execution. They serve as the architects of daily operations. So think about that for a moment. They are the links, so they're the middle bit of the sandwich between senior leadership and team execution, and they are the architects of daily operations. So what makes middle managers indispensable? So there are a number of ways where they kind of add value. So when we're talking about strategy execution, middle managers translate the senior leadership high level vision into actionable steps for the team. So when it's done well, each individual team members will actually understand how their work contributes to organizational success. When it comes to engagement and performance, middle managers directly influence the productivity, satisfaction, and the well-being of the people who work with them. They're often the ones that actually build trust and build rapport with staff, but they're also the ones that could lose it. And then as cultural ambassadors, middle managers are on the ground level, upholding the values and cultures in everyday interactions. So think about that for a moment. Middle managers are often the most visible representation of senior leadership. But here's the shock factor. Research consistently shows that middle managers often struggle to thrive in these critical roles. According to Gallup, only 35% of middle managers are actually engaged at work, which means a large majority of them are not. So only 35% of middle managers engaged. And that's quite shocking. And this kind of level of disengagement actually impacts both their teams and obviously the overall success of their organization. So I don't know if that's a shock to you that 35% of middle managers, only 35%, are actually engaged in the work that they do. And that was a shock to me. Anyway, so feel free as we kind of go through any thoughts. There you go. All your thoughts, just stick them in the chat. Any questions that you've got, feel free to drop them in and I can make sure I answer them as we go through the session. Okay, so middle managers, again, they are caught in that space between senior leadership and their teams. And unfortunately, they often face several challenges that actually prevent them from reaching their full potential as leaders. So some of these challenges include things like insufficient training. So many middle managers are promoted based on technical skill rather than leadership potential. They're often thrown into the deep end, into deep water without adequate training, or support. So if you think about in terms of leadership training, they often don't get that. They're not kind of supported to kind of understand the differences between management and leadership and when you might need both. They're not kind of given any training in terms of communication and how to do that effectively. And in terms of, decision making, they're not often taught how to make decisions and to do that ethically. When it comes to fantastic, yeah, great. I'm glad you agree with that. And when it sounds like you're talking from experience. Okay, so when it comes to competing priorities, they're the ones, this is a big one, they're the ones that are expected to balance team needs or requirements with the expectations of senior management. So middle managers are expected to ensure that the bottom line impact happens, to ensure that the KPIs are met, to make sure that there's ongoing productivity year on year. And this can actually create stress or even frustration, when they're asked to enforce policies or enforce practices that actually don't align with their leadership style, their ethical values, or even their team's needs. So it can be really, really stressful. And then there's also the challenge of limited authority. So middle managers often have limited decision-making power. This kind of whole thing about not having that power makes them feel kind of, disempowered or unable to make the decisions that would directly benefit their teams, which can lead to ineffective leadership, missed opportunities for the effective use of resources, and also missed opportunities for growth. And here's the thing, as if that wasn't bad enough, faith-driven middle managers, they face an added complexity. So how do you maintain your faith-driven principles, when you're trying to meet, business objectives, company objectives, you try to manage people, and then you're trying to compete, to deal with competing priorities. How do you do all of that? And this is where faith-oriented, faith-inspired leadership actually becomes vital. So yeah. Okay, so they do have limited powers, but would be promoted. So yeah, so even with limited powers, they are then still it's still not promoted. So yeah, so whether they are promoted or wouldn't be promoted, they are given limited powers, and that can actually stop them from getting the experience that they need in order to manage those bigger decisions that would lead to natural promotion. So yeah, I definitely get that. It's a bit of a win-lose kind of situation there. Okay, so faith oriented or faith inspired leadership brings something more to the table than just a commitment to company goals, just a commitment to achieving results or profitability. Faith oriented leadership actually brings integrity, it brings compassion, and it brings purpose to your organization. So faith inspired leadership, and I say this often and I will say it again, faith inspired leadership is not about being religious in the workplace. That's not what it's about. It's actually about integrating the core values that lead to ethical decision making, honest communication, transparency, and humble service. And all of those elements together actually transform middle managers into effective, confident, and authentic leaders. See, faith-based principles enable middle managers to do a number of things. Number one, that it helps them to actually build trust. So by aligning, their actions with their values, they become authentic leaders, which fosters trust and actually fosters respect amongst their teams. So if you think about this, if somebody consistently does what they say they're going to do, and then they say what they so they do what they say and they say what they do. If they do that consistently, that can't do anything but build trust and build respect within your organization. Also, totally great and fantastic. Also, when you think about, morale and engagement, when someone leads with compassion and integrity, it actually motivates staff. It motivates employees to kind of give of their best. And they give of their best because they feel valued and they feel seen as individuals and not just as a resource. Okay, so that builds that whole idea of engagement and morale because of how they're treated. And then when it comes to enhancing kind of decision making, with faith as a guide, decisions become more aligned with long-term values, not just short-term profits. And I was thinking about this. If you're focused on the long term, if that's what the focus is, me as an individual working with somebody like that, then I've got something to bring myself to. There's a reason why I want to bring all of what I've got to the organization. There's a reason why, because I'm looking at the long term, I'm striving, I'm putting all my effort to deliver long-term results. Whereas if we're only looking at kind of those short-term kind of profit objectives or targets, well, then all I need to do is to show up and just do just what I need to do in order to hit the targets. I don't have to do anything else. So again, having that whole, faith as a guide and looking more to the long term, it actually helps, to maintain a clear sense of direction and purpose for both the manager, but also members of their team also. So I just think that's really, really important. And empowering middle managers with faith-based leadership and development, it actually sets the foundation for a culture of authenticity, of trust, and sustainability within your organization. So this is just really, really important. Okay, so here are some key statistics, which I think actually shed some light on the vital role that middle managers play on behalf of the organisations that employ them. To get this, okay, nearly 80% of employees who highly trust their employer feel motivated to work. So 80% of employees, so that's staff who highly trust their employer, feel motivated to work. And companies who are considered trustworthy can outperform, the S&P 500, which is the Standard and Poor's kind of 500. They can actually outperform those kind of levels, those organizations, and by levels as high as 30 to 50%. That's crazy, according to the Deloitte USA. I mean, I just think that's amazing, okay? And in case you don't know, the S&P 500 index is actually regarded as one of the best gauges of equity performance and the stock market in the US overall. So it's a really big indicator. And then if you look at research that's published by the Journal of Business Ethics, that suggests that ethical leadership is associated with increased employee performance and reduced turnover intentions. So just having somebody who leads with ethics actually increases performance of staff and actually stops them thinking about leaving an organisation. So I don't know if you know, but employee performance and turnover are two key performance indicators for any organisation that's wanting to succeed. So that's really important to think that just by being an ethical leader, you can have that much of an impact in your organization. And then according to a 2022 Gallup study, I mean, this one just does this. This one, 60% of middle managers experience burnout in their roles. And get this, 40% are actively looking or seeking for new opportunities in any given moment. So 60% of middle managers experience burnout in their roles. And at any point in time, 40% are actively seeking new job opportunities. Now, this kind of high level, high turnover risk not only disrupts team performance, but it can also cost organizations up to 2.5 times the manager's annual salary in order to replace them. So when you factor in things like recruitment, training, and lost productivity, 2.5 times their annual salary. So I think it's definitely something to think about. I don't know. Do you think so? Definitely something to think about. Definitely. Okay, so welcome to those who've joined us. I'm hoping that you're getting to know me by now. But one of the things I like to do is I like to make things real, and I like to empower people and businesses to make a positive impact. So now that we understand the importance of middle managers and their role, and the role of faith-based leadership, let's move on to just exploring some practical strategies to empower them or you as a linchpin of an organization's success. So let's look at some of these practical strategies. Now, some of them you may have kind of heard or you think, yeah, I've got an understanding of those, but bear with me. Okay, so the first one is leadership development programs, okay? But what I'm talking about here is targeted leadership development programs that actually emphasize ethical leadership, empathy, and conflict resolution. And it's those programs that actually help middle managers to understand the link between values and performance. So we're talking about leadership development programs with a difference. Okay, the second one is coaching and mentoring. Okay, so we know about coaching and mentoring, but we're talking about those processes that encourage mentoring relationships between senior leadership and middle managers. You see, mentoring creates a space to share struggles, to learn, to kind of gain perspective, and to learn how to align leadership with values in challenging situations. So anything can really help to encourage that. Is going to help to give middle managers a sounding board within their organizations to do the right thing when situations occur. So that's really important. Okay, then we talk about decision making autonomy as a strategy. So allow middle managers to make team level decisions. So allow them to make the decisions about their teams. So this is going to create a sense of ownership and accountability. You see, when middle managers are empowered to lead with values, they feel more confident and they feel more aligned in their decisions, but also in their decision-making capability. It's really important. And again, in the number 4, then we're talking about faith integration. So another strategy is to encourage middle managers to explore and integrate their faith with their leadership. Now, I've shared this in a previous session, but in the 2021 UK census, the figures were something like 52.6% of the population would describe themselves as having faith. And then within that, I think it's something like 46.9 or 49.6% of those actually ascribe themselves or describe themselves as having a Christian faith. Now, the reason why I'm saying that is of that 52.6% of the population, those people are going to be in your organizations too. So we don't know to what extent, but bet your bottom dollar they're going to be people of faith within your organization. So a strategy of faith integration will actually help you can do this by providing a space for faith-based discussions, reflection time, or to create opportunities for service leadership. So help managers to see how their faith can enhance their professional lives. And the more that they're able to kind of visualize this, the more likely they are to do it. So it's just a real opportunity to bring that. Yeah, and if you empower them, then you'll actually have a decline in burnout rate, definitely, because there are other studies around, what happens to people, the kind of internal stress and that they experience when they're not able to align who they are with what they're doing. So again, if you're actually empowering them to bring their faith to the workplace as a positive, you're going to diminish that stress internally, definitely. And then number 5 is to create a culture of open communication. So encourage middle managers to model transparency and open communication. So by aligning, their leadership practices with their faith-based values, middle managers are able to inspire their teams to do the same. So remember, the principle that I often talk about is parallel processing. So remember the principle of parallel processing. Behavior matters. So what is displayed at the top of the organization will permeate throughout the organization over time. So just kind of what we do makes a big difference. Okay, so now let's just take a moment to reflect on how you can apply these kind of strategies that we've discussed within your organization. Okay, so we're doing a quick practical thing. So get your fingers on the chat box, because I'm going to need you to give me some interaction in the chat. Okay, so I want you to imagine this scenario. So one of your middle managers, could be yourself, is torn between meeting an aggressive company deadline and supporting an overwhelmed team member. They feel kind of caught in the middle, struggling to balance expectations of senior leadership and the well-being of their team. So that's what the struggle is. So how can the middle manager be empowered to make a values-driven decision? How can they be empowered to do that? So what I want you to do is just to think of a similar challenge that maybe you've experienced, whether as a middle manager yourself or as a leader who manages middle managers, or even if it's a dilemma that you're currently facing. So I want you to just imagine that and then consider how integrating faith-based values like compassion, integrity, and trust could guide the middle manager's decision-making progress. So how could you do that? Okay, and then I want you to ask yourself, what tools, training, guidance could you provide to actually help them to navigate this particular situation? So we're talking about this scenario. How could you actually help them to navigate that with confidence? And or how might mentoring or mentoringship open up, an open communication and decision making, and how can that help? So what we're saying is, in this then scenario, how could we apply some of the things that we've talked about to a situation like this? Okay, so be prepared just to kind of like share your thoughts in 1 or 2 sentences. Okay, fantastic. So you talk about, so have, mental check-in sessions. So again, so help the senior manager, so you could provide them with mental check-ins. So is everything going on okay? Is there anything that I could add? Do you want to share anything? Or how are you feeling about the stuff that's going on at work? So I love that one. That's great. Any others? What other ideas could you have that could help this manager in a situation like this? Maybe, share a challenge that you've faced and how you were kind of empowered or wish you had been empowered to handle it. So what have we got? We've got, okay, so one of the things you can say is to calm down and take it one step at a time. I mean, that's really a good one. I mean, and I would add to that one to add some intentional breathing. So taking conscious breaths, which brings oxygen to your brain, which allows you to think more freely in that moment. So rather than getting caught up in the stress of the situation, you can calm yourself down, and that allows you to be productive in thinking different ways through a challenge. So definitely add that one. And also remember your values. So encourage them to remember their values so that they don't make the wrong decisions or make decisions that they are congruent or happy with. That would reduce stress. And then, okay, and if it's a skill issue, then maybe introduce a mentoring program to help them. So yeah, these are great ones. I love this. This is really cool. This is really cool. And I guess, so, thinking about yourself, that might be a challenge that you faced and how you wish that you had been empowered to handle it. So just another couple of questions. I'm aware of time, but just a couple of questions, if I may. What's one leadership challenge that you have faced? And how did faith-driven principles help, or could they have helped? Yeah, so what's one leadership challenge that you faced, and how did faith-driven principles help, or how could they have helped? So I don't know if you've got something like that, you can just drop in the chat. I was thinking about this one, so whilst you're thinking about your situation, I'll share one that I've had recently. So I was working with I was doing a 360-degree feedback with one of my clients, and she didn't like one of the comments that somebody had made. So in the tool that I use, not only are there kind of questions that people rate, but people can actually add free text, so they can actually give comments about what somebody does well or what they could do better. And this client didn't like one of the comments that they saw, and so what I had to do was to bring that whole faith-based principle of love into the equation to help her to see that this was the thing that her behavior was doing in the workplace without alienating her and without causing issues between her and the person who gave them feedback. But it's just the just bringing that principle of love, of giving truth, but with a loving attitude, that really made the difference and turned that situation around. So that's just my example. So I don't know if you've got any examples of what's a leadership challenge that you faced and how did those principles help you? Or even what's one action that you can take to empower middle managers in your organization starting this week. Anyway, so that's kind of cool, but I think I do love some of these suggestions. So empower them, regular mental health check-ins, tell them to calm down and work with them to do that. And values are really important, and maybe introducing some mentoring. So I do love that. So thank you for those shares. Feel free to keep adding thoughts or reflections into the chat as we continue. So what I'm really hoping is that that exercise is just a reminder that empowering middle managers actually requires a couple of things. It requires intentionality. It requires, value-driven values and practical support. So it's just a reminder. Okay, so let's just wrap up with a roadmap for taking action and then a summary of some of the key takeaways from today. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so the question is, how well equipped are you? So that's whether you as a senior leader or as a middle manager, how equipped are you to lead with confidence, to empower others and create lasting impact within your organization? So how equipped are you? So if this conversation, about the importance of middle management and the success, to the success of your organization, if it just piqued your interest even a tiny bit, okay, then I want to invite you to take a deeper dive into your style of leadership, the level of influence that you currently have, and to explore how you can have an even greater impact as an ethical leader. So I offer a free leadership impact and influence audit where we'll evaluate, your role as a middle manager and help you to strengthen your ethical leadership skills. So, feel free just to, scan the QR code or look in the chat. There'll be a link coming up in the chat in a moment, and where you can book in for a 40-minute leadership audit. Like I said, it's completely complimentary. But in this personalised session, we're going to work together to analyse your kind of decision-making process, identify some areas for improvement, and to develop a strategy for strengthening your ethical leadership. So I always say, don't wait until the next issue arises. Let's prepare for you to be the best that you can be in securing your organisation's success now. Okay, so spaces are limited. So please do, use the QR code or use the link that's in the chat to book your session soon, if not now. And I really do look forward to working with you to help you to kind of let your faith inspire your leadership and help you to lead with more integrity and in a way that inspires trust. Okay, so some key takeaways then. So today we've looked at how empowering middle managers isn't just about giving them more responsibility. It's about providing them with the tools to actually lead ethically, to lead confidently, and to lead authentically. So by integrating faith-based values, you can create a culture that is driven by integrity, compassion, and purpose. So what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts about what we've shared? Okay, so feel free, please, just put your reflections, any questions that you've got, just drop them in the chat so that I can answer them. But please feel free just to let us know what your thoughts are. So that, please, that'd be good. And yeah, so yeah, it's not another responsibility. It's just helping you to look at what you do and to be more aware of your behaviors so that you're able to behave more consistently and in a way that makes the biggest difference without having to put more effort. So it's not about doing something different. That's right. It's about doing what you do, doing it efficiently, but using the behaviors that make a difference in your organization so that you model ethical leadership. Okay, fantastic. Okay, so I want to thank you for joining me today. Remember, when middle managers are equipped with the leadership tools that they need, their full potential is unlocked, enhancing both their personal growth and organizational success. So again, I'm saying feel free to drop your reflections in the chat or to reach out to me, because either way, I really would like to continue this kind of journey of ethical leadership with you. And just one thing, exciting news before we close, okay? So bear with me. So finding ways to kind of broaden our connection and helping us to continue this kind of journey of ethical leadership is something that I've been thinking about for a while. So I'm excited to announce that soon I'll be launching a faith-inspired membership group, and that group's going to be full of resources. So there's things for you to download, there's things for you to read, there's practical strategies to have a go at, there's a whole communities to kind of talk to, and we're also going to have monthly opportunities to come together to talk openly with our cameras and voices and to connect with like-minded people. So I'm just wanting to build just an amazing community of ethical leaders. And there's also going to be some super duper offers for those who jump in and jump on board from the beginning. So if that's something that you think you might be interested in and you might want to find out a little bit more, then please just put a yes in the chat or put some thumbs up in the chat. I think, you know what? That sounds interesting. I just want to hear a bit more about that. No pressure, no sales. It's not about that. But if you think that could be interested, you could be interested in that, then please just put a yes in the chat. Always brilliant, fantastic. Okay, fantastic. We got bowls in there. That's fantastic. So just put a yes in the chat or some emojis, or you can direct message me on LinkedIn, and that way it's just so that I can keep you in mind as we move towards the actual launch of the group. So if you're interested in that, just let me know, reach out to me, and I can keep you in mind. So finally, just let you know, there is going to be a worksheet that actually accompanies this session, and so we're going to be mailing that out to you. So do thank you for joining us. So do look out for that, so you'll get a worksheet that kind of goes all through the principles and things that we've covered today. Now, I'm happy to stick around for a few minutes if there are any further questions, or you might want to ask about the leadership, the leadership membership group. You might want to ask about that. So I'm quite happy to stick around. Otherwise, I look forward to speaking with those of you who've booked on for complimentary leadership audit with me. And so until next time, I'm going to say stay blessed. Stay blessed. But do, stick around. I'm just going to turn the recording off now. And so if there's anything that you want to add, then feel free.